Hi, I'm Leon Blackman, and today joined by Dan Morley, boxing analyst, professional boxer, all-round lover of the sport. Dan's joined us from Switzerland. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Leon. Thanks for getting me on, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm out here. Tried to find a nice spot where it's not too loud, but it's quite quiet out here anyway, so it's
How
all
the
good.
Swiss treating you?
Yeah, I love it, man. I come out here every year. I'm out here for a month, so I teach people how to box. Um, yeah, really, really well. I couldn't actually think of being anywhere nicer right now, to be honest.
Nice. Are they big into their boxing in Switzerland?
No,
No.
no, no, not at all. It's kind of the reason they brought me out here, is to
Yeah.
try and get people interested. But no, I don't know whether it's true, but I think I heard something that they're not even allowed to spar until they're 17, which would explain why they haven't got that many fighters. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
interested here though. They're taking up the sessions with me, which is good.
Yeah. Nice. And we've got you on today to preview the Usyk Dubois main event on Saturday. The chance for Usyk to unify the heavyweight division. What Since that fight in August 2023 and the knockout win for Usyk, what's changed for these two fighters?
Yeah, I mean, a lot, in the grand scheme of this fight will be highlighted on the change of Daniel Dubois because Usyk is basically just as good as he was back then, and he is obviously still the best heavyweight in the world. We didn't know it outright then because he hadn't beaten Fury, but now he has. He's been established, and he's done it twice. But I think everyone knew he was class. Everyone favoured him quite heavily in that first fight, and barring the the shot that I think was a low blow, not the most obvious low blow ever, but barring that and a few decent body shots that sort of annoyed Usyk a little bit, I think Usyk won that one quite comfortably and took it to the next level, which is where he ultimately got the stoppage late on. But since that fight, Usyk, as I say, he has become a much more well recognised name globally, and he's probably cemented himself as an all-time great since that fight, with the foundations he laid going into that fight, and then the two Tyson Fury wins pushing him on. So he has always been confident, has always been exceptional, but he will know, and the world knows now just how good he is. But I think that the more significant changes with Daniel Dubois, he was labelled a quitter going into that first fight, and going up, after that fight, that opinion strengthened. He has a newfound resilience, and more importantly, a confidence in that resilience. Against Jarrell Miller, I think that was the ultimate test where he could have given up and then fallen into the quitter category. But he dug through with that one, and then he beat Hrgovic, which was a very good win. He beat him in again a fashion in which he had to overcome adversity. Kept taking that right hand, and then his confidence had obviously soared, and he blew away Joshua going in as a slight underdog. So he will believe that he did hurt Usyk going into that going into this fight. He did hurt Usyk with that body shot, and now he knows he has the grit and resilience as well as the physical strength in his mind to hurt Usyk. So I think his confidence will be a lot higher than it probably was going into the first one.
Yeah, and do you think he's levels above where he was in August 2023, or is it just he's made some improvements here and there, or do you see like a complete different fighter in the ring?
It's difficult to say because I think he is significantly better than he was against Usyk the first time. So a lot of it is quite psychological, more so than physically and technically better. But yeah, I do think he's definitely a better fighter than he was. But he hasn't been in with anyone as good as Usyk. I mean, the Joshua win was very good, but whether it was his power that had done this, caused this, but Joshua was making so many basic mistakes that he was just able to nullify, and he did it extremely well. But you're not going to get those opportunities against Usyk. So I do think he is significantly better, but this is the ultimate test. Hrgovic is a decent fighter. Joshua is a good fighter that had an off night that night as well as just being in against a good opponent. But Usyk is the best in the world for a reason. So this will be the test.
Yeah, and Usyk's currently around 1-3 favourite. So if you put that in probability, it's around a 75% chance of a win. Where do you agree with those odds for Saturday?
I think he should be the favourite. I mean, he has one of the hardest trodden paths in boxing today to achieve what he's achieved. He has beaten Dubois already, which shows that he knows he can beat him. I think Dubois is live. I don't think it's a mismatch by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't think the first one was a mismatch, but Dubois is probably at this stage the third best heavyweight in the world. I would say. I think you probably still put Fury up there because Fury gave Usyk good fights. People tend to forget that. Neither of those fights were dominant displays by Usyk, but you would favour Usyk. The thing is, Dubois is just so big and strong that at heavyweight, all it takes is one punch. Usyk is also 38 years old as well, so he's an incredibly disciplined athlete and he wants to continue. So you wouldn't have thought Father Time would have caught up. So having someone as good and as big and as strong as Dubois at this stage, you never know. But I would favour Usyk.
Yeah, and what negatives do you see, if any, like chips in Usyk's game that you think Dubois can uh, try and take advantage of Saturday?
I think that Usyk has got a tendency. You can get under Usyk's skin a little bit. As I say, I think that was a low blow. That one to put him on the floor, and I think he milked it, which he's entitled to do because they do hurt those shots. It wasn't a low blow right on the sensitive areas, let's say, but it was on the groin guard, sort of around the bladder area. And what most people that have never boxed don't know is if it hits you there, the groin guard goes up and basically squashes that area, so it does hurt. There's no protection for the bladder, so it does just hurt. So you're allowed to take 5 minutes. So I do think that was a low blow, but I do think there were sort of borderline shots around that Usyk was making a point to complain to the ref about. He does have a tendency in some of his fights to be a bit of a complainer to the ref. Not that really matters, because he ultimately adjusts and he's one of the most determined winners in the world today, if not the most. But you can get on his nerves a bit. You can make him try and referee the fight himself. So, if Dubois is going to try and rush him, rough him up, make him complain, maybe get him worked up, that would be the only weakness I can see. Because other than that, he's pretty solid.
Yeah, and looking at the data on oddschecker, the most popular bet from our backers is Usyk to win on points this Saturday. What do you make about that?
Yeah, I mean, he's already stopped him, so you have to take that into account. He knows he can stop him. But it's the points I touched upon earlier. It's more the significant change of this fight and more and Dubois' psychology. He, before he went into that first Usyk fight, he had the quitter label because of the Joe Joyce defeat, and then he quit in that one. And since he's found that inner toughness to get through, so you take that and you take the fact that Usyk isn't the hardest puncher in the world, you would probably say his boxing skills will see him to a points victory. But that being said, the only way I can really see Dubois winning is by rushing him like he rushed Joshua. And if you rush Usyk, you're going to be made to miss quite a lot, and that's tiring. And you sort of get 5-6 rounds, get a little bit of success. But Usyk isn't just great defensively, being evasive. He really wears you out. He's always twitching on that front foot and keeping you working. So I do think I can see a combination of Dubois being over-eager, being made to miss, working at that pace early on, and then gradually just being sort of chipped away to where he's exhausted by sort of rounds 9, 10. And I could see an accumulation stoppage, a TKO stoppage for Usyk late on. So I think if I was really going to put my money on it, I would probably go with an Usyk stoppage around 10, 11. As I say, Usyk isn't necessarily the hardest puncher in the division, but if you actually look at his fights, he stopped Dubois. He nearly stopped Joshua in the first one. He had Joshua reeling all over the ring in the final round, and he nearly stopped Fury. Fury's extremely durable. Dubois has proven to be durable now, so he has got a good tendency of getting people seriously hurt and exhausted.
Yeah, so you've got Usyk to win rounds 10 to 12. That's around 6-1, 13-2. And Usyk KO, TKO is around 13-10. So both plus money plays there. And say Usyk does take the win as expected, what do you think is the next move for him? He said he'll have one more fight, likely being AJ or Fury. What do you see next?
Well, the thing is, I think the Fury fights are better than the AJ fights with Usyk. I still think Usyk was a winner in both. They were tight. People like to talk badly about Fury because he's been a bit annoying with how he's run as heavyweight champion. It's undeniable, but he gave Usyk really tough fights. They were very close. However, as I said, I do think Usyk won them, and it's quite clearly stated now that he is the better of the two. Manny Pacquiao's fighting this weekend, and it took 4 fights for Marquez to finally beat him outright. And they were close. So a potential third fight with Fury might be able to beat him, but I don't really see the appeal in a trilogy with either Joshua or Fury. The only one I can see with a slight bit of appeal in this situation currently in his next fight would be Joseph Parker. I don't think it's a great sell. I think it's a good fight. It's good for his legacy because it's another world champion. But it's not as big a fight as a Fury or an AJ has been. Maybe a Talma, but I think a Talma is just way too early for Usyk. Although I do think a Talma is going to be great. So yeah, but it depends. I do think that he doesn't need to be fighting now, to be honest. But I also obviously run my social media, and I always see themes of recency bias. 5 years ago, Fury was the greatest heavyweight that's ever lived, and now he's nothing. Now Usyk is the greatest heavyweight that's ever lived. You know what I mean? And he's the greatest of this generation, which he could be. But you only have to look back sort of 20 years to see that Holyfield, went undisputed at cruiser, and then had about 15 to 20 more heavyweight title fights than Usyk's currently had, or 10 more title fights than Usyk's had. So I do think that, staying if he wants to stay and keeping on defeating the contenders only strengthens his legacy.
Yeah, and that leads us well onto where you think Usyk ranks all time in the heavyweight goats, assuming he gets a win this weekend.
Yeah, it's like I just said, and I think a lot of the mainstream media are a bit guilty of this as well, is people don't really know the depth of history. So we have to assess what Usyk's done. He's had, I believe, 7 heavyweight title fights and 7 wins. He's beaten Dubois. No, it's 5, isn't it? Yeah. He's beaten Joshua twice, Dubois and Fury twice, which is a very good 5-fight run as heavyweight champion. It's only 5 fights. It's less than Rocky Marciano had, and Rocky only had 6. If he beats Dubois again, he's basically beaten 3 top-notch heavyweights of his era twice. And you look at the history of boxing, you've got someone like Joe Louis who had 25 straight wins over a decade, so you've got to compare it with that. I recently did it, and I think I had Usyk around sort of the 15 area all time. He has a great quality of wins, but not a vast quantity. Overall, when you look at his overriding legacy with the undisputed cruiserweight run as well, he's significantly higher all time, But as a heavyweight alone, with just 6 title fights, very good wins, he hasn't quite got the depth of the guys above him. But he'll definitely be in and amongst the top sort of 15 of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah, interesting. His cruiserweight run definitely adds to it. I guess it's kind of eaten into what he could do at heavyweight.
Yeah, and you have to take into account as well, and it's the same with Holyfield. I think people forget how good Holyfield was, but Usyk's an Olympic gold medalist, as was Holyfield. So that eats into his professional career, which hasn't been as long, but it's just been similarly to Lomachenko, who took it to another level. It's basically been most of it at the very top level. I just think that when you look at the history of the heavyweight division, we talk all time, but I think people forget a lot of great fighters. Holyfield beat Larry Holmes, George Foreman, Mike Tyson twice, Fox Leonard Lewis twice, Michael Moorer. It just goes Riddick Bowe 3 times. I mean, that is vast depth. Whereas I think Tyson Fury, Dubois, and Joshua twice is very good. But you're comparing it with guys that have been doing it 3 times as long.
Yeah, and touching on AJ and Fury, that fight, it's always been dangled in front of us and never happened. What chance do you give that fight of being made now?
I think there's always a chance. I mean, it's such a big money fight. It will always sell out a stadium. I mean, I'm interested in it, and I think it does. I know people aren't really interested in it now, and it's definitely lost its lure. Which should have been done when they were both on top of the world. It should have been done. It's one of the biggest that with Mayweather and Pacquiao not happening, and it's one of the biggest fights that's fallen through of the 21st century. I don't think there's ever been a British fight that big either. So it's definitely a blunder for it not being made. But it's still a big fight. I still think Fury is one of the best heavyweights in the world. He isn't the best heavyweight, but as I've already touched upon, he's given Usyk the best heavyweight tough fights. Still fights in him, and it'd be interesting to see what AJ's got left. But yeah, I think it's such a big fight and there's so much money involved. It can still happen. Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, it seems that it's past its peak when they're both at the top of their game. Um, and it kind of takes the gloss off it if it's a retirement fight for both of them. But
Yeah, it does.
yeah.
It does. It's a bit like Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson. When did that happen? 2002, when it should have happened, about a decade before, even more. But they're not shot. I mean, we don't really know about Joshua because he's coming off a pretty bad performance. But Tyson Fury isn't shot. Do you know what I mean? He's not way past it. He's still a good fighter. He's only just lost the heavyweight titles. Joshua, if he can bounce, I don't know. If it happens next, we don't know what state Joshua's in after that fight. But yeah, I mean, it has to happen soon because it is going to keep losing its attraction more and more the longer it takes.
And just touching on one last British heavyweight fight to look forward to is Otoma Dillian White next month. Otoma currently the 1-12 favourite, which is about a 92% chance of beating White. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think Otoma's the real deal. He's got poise, the way he sets his shots up, the way he is just so relaxed, the power, the speed. He's got IQ beyond his years, and he's proven that. This is a good step up for him, but at this stage of Dillian White's career as well, he's definitely on a downward slope. I mean, Dillian White's been around for ages, and he's been a great servant to British boxing. He's been in some great fights. He's actually got a very good resume when you think about it. But yeah, Itauga is looking the real deal. It's a big name for him. This, I think, White has shown susceptibility to or vulnerability to uppercuts as well. Itauga, he's good at uppercuts. So
Yeah.
I think the timing of this fight, how good Itauga looks, and the sort of wisdom beyond his years in a boxing sense. I think he'll stop Dillian White.
Yeah, I think the early stoppage markets could be of interest in that one. Currently around evens to win in rounds 1-6. I think that's a pretty safe bet if you look at it.
I think so. As I say, White has shown susceptibility to shots against good fighters, but fighters that he should beat, and have gone on to beating Povetkin and stuff. So
Yeah. And another big fight this weekend is the return of Manny Pacquiao against Barrios for the welterweight title. What do you make of his return? He's currently a 9-4 underdog, so he's given a live chance in this one.
That's not mad, that actually, considering. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think about his return? See, I agree with you. I think the 1-3 on Barrios is a good price. I mean, you're having a 46-year-old step into the ring after a 5-6 year break. I mean, I think it'd be bigger odds than 9-4.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bad fight. If I'm honest, I don't. It borders on the line of dangerous when you go to that. But it is Manny Pacquiao, and Manny Pacquiao is just an absolute freak. We're talking about a man that fought across a span of 10 divisions and won pretty much 90% of his fights. The thing with Pacquiao is one of his outstanding qualities was his longevity. He had the Keith Thurman win, which was and a string of wins going into that. And a couple of robbery losses around that to Jeff Horn and Bradley. So his longevity was phenomenal. But when you actually look at his last fight against Ugas at 42, he didn't look great. He looked like he'd lost it. He looked like Father Time had caught up with him. So it's a bit of a worrying sign. And he's had an exhibition in recent years, which he really didn't look very good in either. But he didn't really look in shape, to be honest with you. He'll get in shape for this one. So yeah, I mean, I don't think Mario Barrios is the greatest welterweight champion to ever live. Let's put it that way. He's obviously solid. He's been stopped by Tank, which there's no shame in that. But that's a southpaw, an explosive southpaw. So I think they've chosen an opponent they feel that is the best chance of beating in the division right now, for what it's worth. So yeah, I think Barrios will probably just be too primed and too strong and probably stop him. But if Pacquiao does it, I was saying this the other day, like with what he's already done, crossing 10 divisions and being a champion at 46, if he does it, which I don't see happening. I don't say this lightly because I think it gets thrown around a lot, but you could put him as a contender for the greatest boxer of all time, considering he would then be also one of the oldest champions and on top of everything he's ever done. But yeah, I think he'll probably get stopped.
And just quickly, if you could touch on it, like when you grow into like past 40, what is the difference for a boxer? Like, do you lose your power, or if you are just training constantly, is there that much difference?
You just slow down. You lose. Lots of fighters would lose the hunger at that stage, which Manny obviously hasn't. But Manny's a fast twitch fighter, so you just lose that. His speed, he's in and out. You lose that endurance in your legs. Most importantly, you lose the ability to take a punch. And yeah, you just lose that edge. And Pacquiao was a fighter that relied on that edge. He was in and out, speed. You just couldn't keep up with him. He in the sort of second phase of his career, he worked in spurts more, which he was a lot less consistent, but would explode in and out. So if he's still capable of doing that, he could shock Barrios and catch him. He always just tended to drop people anyway, even when the knockouts were drying out. So he's obviously got that explosiveness. But yeah, you just coming back at 46, you just lose that sharpness. The thing is, it has been done. It's not impossible. Hopkins has done it. Archie Moore was champion. Pacquiao's been inactive, so I can't see that serving him well, unless it's just freshened him up.
Yeah. And finally, just want to touch on Eubank too. Seems like there's a lot of back and forths between the parties as expected about the weight. Probably some mind games getting played there. Do you expect that fight to happen? It's rumored to be September 20th. Seems like it will go ahead. It's just trying to rile Ben up as much as they can.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of the first fight, to be honest. When it happened, I thought fair play, because I thought the first fight was a little bit of a gimmick. Do you know what I mean? Like, Eubank had lost to the top level guys, and Ben hadn't proven himself to the top level. One had been banned for failing a drugs test, and the other was, making ridiculous amount of weights. Getting them that far apart to meet just solely for the name, I just thought it was a bit of a gimmick. If I'm completely honest, but obviously it made sense because there was money, and it ended up being a really good fight, and there was just so much depth to the character involved in that fight that I didn't necessarily think there would be when it happened. So, I basically ate my words with that one. Not that I was outwardly saying that, but that was just my thoughts on it. And it ended up being really good. It ended up being one of the best events that we've had in British boxing for quite a while, with the whole drama of it, with how good the fight was, with the back and forth. And I was there. It was really good. But I think it's a bit of a one and done job. I think it's done now. All of the drama into that fight with Eubank's dad, with Eubank's dad, as if he isn't the main man, with Chris Eubank Sr., that was phenomenal. They can't spring that up again. Just the fight being that good, it might happen again, but it is dangerous. I do think a lot of Eubank sort of beginning to slow down at the end was because of that weight cut, as well as Ben's pressure. It doesn't need to happen again. I think Eubank won it. It was a good fight, but I think Eubank was the clear winner. I don't think it really makes that much sense. I think if you're Conor Benn, maybe try and target the winner of Barrios Pacquiao or someone. Do you know what I mean? Get yourself a world title, establish your legacy as well as that great fight. But it'll obviously make a load of money. And if Turkey Out Shake wants it, then it'll happen.
Yeah. And if they do meet again, do you expect the same result? It kind of sounds like you do.
But yeah, I think so. I think all of the advantages really are with Eubank. I mean, he was so hungry to win that one, which he might not have for this second one because he's done it. But he won that of pure desire because he was exhausted. But he's bigger, he's more experienced, He's got a win already. The only disadvantage that I think it could go against him is a really horrible weight cut, and just catching up with him and not having that same desire to dig right deep to the trenches as he did in the first fight. That's the only thing I think could be his undoing. But Conor Benn obviously punches hard, so he could obviously clip him, and he has a style that does suit Eubank's style in regards to he can close down Eubank. So I would probably favour Eubank, but again, I don't really see barring the money, the attraction in it. I think it's been done.
Yeah. Dan, top man, mate. Thanks for joining us.
Mate, Leon, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Anytime. All right, cool. I'll end that recording.